so anybody who misses it can get a copy of it later on. My name is Jenny Windle, and I'm the founder and president of JPW Communications. We're a full-service marketing and communications firm located right here in North County. And presenting with me today are Susanne Bankhead, who's our Vice President of Client Affairs, and Leslie Spring, who is our Senior Communications Manager. Today's workshop is really for the novice online commerce professional or business. This is not an advanced course. It's simply a primer to get you ready to understand what it takes to get operating online. So we just wanted to sort of set that level and make that clear as we get started. There is a ton of content we have to cover in the next hour or so. And then we've allowed about 30 minutes at the end of our session to answer as many questions as we can possibly get to. And again, we're going to be scratching the surface on a lot of topics, but we have some great resources as we go along through this presentation, links to additional information and so forth that we'll be sharing in the chat box. So if you want to activate that chat box, now is a good time to do that so you can follow along with some of those links as we make them available through the session. I wanted to start out just with an anecdotal story and just to kind of let you know where we are as a company as well. Our company has been in business for about 4.5 years. And as of March 1st of this year, we were projecting 2020 to be our biggest year on record and our first significantly profitable year, which, as you all know, as businesses is really a wonderful thing when you've started up a new company from scratch. By March 13th, however, we were packing up our offices to work from home for an indefinite amount of time. And then by April 1st, we were adjusting our revenue projections significantly, which was a less than inspirational exercise, as you can imagine, and you may have had to do yourself. Obviously, we have a slightly different business than those of you who are working out of traditional brick and mortar stores, but I simply wanted to share our story to let you know that we're in a similar boat. We're having to reevaluate every assumption that we've had for the year ahead, and we're doing everything we can to weather this storm. I would also venture to say that many of us have shifted into survival mode, and we're doing everything we can to keep our business alive. And in that vein, we really hope that this workshop will be a small part of your long-term success to get through this trying time. Before we jump into the content, we just want to take care of a few housekeeping items. We're thrilled to have such a large group with us today. As I said, more than 65 folks registered for the workshop. And with such a large group, we have opted to mute all video and audio for the workshop, just so we're not inadvertently disrupted during our time together. And then we've also, as I mentioned, allocated some time at the end of our workshop to answer as many questions as we can from you. And we'll do that through that chat box. When we get to that point, you can just type in your questions and we'll go through that and answer as many as we can. And lastly, before we dive right in, here's the outline of what we plan to cover in today's session. First, we're going to touch a bit on the current economic climate and state of affairs for small businesses. We'll then move into a brief discussion about pivoting to online commerce. And then finally, the heart of our program today will be the 6 steps to successfully selling online, which is designed as a real hands-on how-to module to getting some things done and getting your business selling online. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in.
Thanks, Jenny, and good morning, everyone. This is Susanne Bankhead here. I'm the Vice President of Client Affairs at JPW Communications. As Jenny said, we're really excited to be here with you today and share this information. I think it goes without saying that business owners are likely faced with one of their biggest challenges ever right now. Unlike the 2008 recession, which provided a number of canaries in the coal mine, so to speak, leading up to the recession, the COVID pandemic hit hard and it hit unexpectedly. As Jenny shared about our company trajectory and where we thought we were going this year in that first quarter, the week before our lockdown, our senior team at JPW Communications, we went out for a celebratory happy hour because we just closed in a record amount of new business since the start of the year. So we were literally clinking glasses one day and then packing up our offices to work remotely the next. That's the brutal reality of this virus. And just to share some economic data with you, there is a study done by Digital Commerce 360 where 47% of retailers expect some downturn in revenue due to coronavirus. Again, this survey was done in March 2020 by Digital Commerce 360, and it surveyed 304 retailers. 33% of retailers say it's too early to tell, and then 58% say the virus will impact consumer confidence, and 22% say there will be a significant impact to their business. And while the health concerns of COVID, they're real, they're widespread, we know that it's also leaving a long-term business and economic consequences in its wake. So right now, it's very natural for us to want to just focus on staying afloat in this moment, but today's workshop is going to challenge you to really think about new ways to thrive in this new business climate and to be prepared for whatever comes next. And one of the best ways to do just that is to adapt your services to the current situation. Obviously, if your business relies on face-to-face interaction with clients in a brick and mortar storefront, that challenge is pressing and poses a serious threat. We've seen restaurants really adapt to this model quickly and lean into this moment where they're offering home delivery options, curbside pickups, discounts, weekly or monthly subscription style deals, and other incentives to keep business going. And at a market on the complete opposite of the spectrum, car dealers, they've also really pivoted in this moment as well. So much so that the way that we buy cars may be forever changed as car dealers move to online commerce and valet pickup services where human interaction is reduced to almost nothing.
Thanks, Suzanne. Good morning, everyone. This is Leslie Spring, Senior Communications Manager at JPW, and I'm going to talk a little bit about pivoting to online commerce. Given the current COVID landscape, it seems like businesses really don't have a choice to do much other than that, and in fact, it seems like it's either we need to adapt our businesses or suffer the consequences of the quarantine. And there's also some statistical reasoning to get behind online commerce regardless of the COVID situation. A new report from the Commerce Department last week showed a new milestone for online shopping. The total market share of sales done with non-store retailers or online was higher than general merchandise, including store sales in February. And that was before we were all on lockdown. So that's definitely something for us all to think about. So even if you've never considered selling online before now, it really is the perfect time to pivot, not only because customers are stuck at home right now and they're searching for alternatives to receiving in order to receive the goods and services that they've come to rely on prior to the pandemic, but we also know that new habits form during periods like this. We know that life as we know it won't be the same after all of this is over. And just as distance learning might become more acceptable in education and working from home is likely to be more acceptable in the modern workplace, the way people consume goods and services is predicted to change as well. I think the fundamental change post-COVID will be us asking ourselves, is there a reason to do this in person? When I think really before people, the question was more likely, do I have to do this online? And that shift will likely affect retailers as well. And while it's too early to tell what the long-term changes will be, one thing is definitely for certain, it doesn't hurt to make the move to online selling sooner rather than later. And to underscore this point a little bit more, a story on Vox last week said that more and more people are switching to online shopping and grocery delivery pickup, and they might not revert to their old habits when the pandemic ends. So how do we actually pivot to online selling? We have outlined 6 steps for success that we think will help. And of course, each one of these steps could be a workshop on its own because there's a lot of material to unpack behind each one. But the purpose of today's session, we're gonna give you a 30,000 high-level view of the top-line steps to help wrap your head around the process and ultimately give you the confidence to start moving forward. And just for a quick reminder, we're gonna talk about 3 main places to sell your merchandise today. The first of which is your own website. The second, marketplace sites, and third, social media.
All right, thanks, Leslie. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the steps, starting with step 1, which is determine feasibility of selling online. We touched on how restaurants and food purveyors have started pivoting to creative solutions and even car dealerships. But what about if you sell home goods or clothing or plants or even real estate? Each business segment is a little different, and each sales strategy will have to be tailored a bit to your own customer base. We can't underscore this enough. Knowing your audience is the most important thing to do right out of the gate. Obviously, if you're trying to reach senior citizens, if that's your target group, having a really strong presence on Instagram is probably not the match for you. But as we go through all these different ideas, you can kind of align your audience with the different methods and see what is the best mix of opportunities for your business. One thing we're also suggesting that you do during this first phase is to talk with your customers if you have a line of communication open with them. And you can do this either through a survey that perhaps you send through your email program, or even invite a few customers to a small online focus group to hear from them directly about their needs and expectations during this time. At our company at JPW, we always say that research is the foundational key to all success. And as you determine how you're going to sell online, putting a little work into learning about your customers right now will really help you with your long-term efforts, because obviously we're trying to get your businesses, or you're trying to get your businesses up and online as soon as possible right now. But as Leslie touched on just a moment ago, we think this is going to be a long-term shift in consumer behavior. So you really should think of this as a long-term investment. Now, what if you think you can't sell your products online? That's something we've heard a lot of too. And we've put a little thought into some alternatives for you to recapturing sales revenue that are worth noting, and just to sort of jog your creative juices. If you can't sell your products online, there are creative ways to generate revenue and still connect with your customers. And that, we think, is a noble thing to be doing during this time. It could be done, for instance, through virtual experiences, which is something that's really starting to take hold in this COVID era. For instance, if you're a nursery and you typically sell plants, you could consider curating a home garden starter kit and pair it with an online how-to course that teaches people how to get their garden started. This, as a for instance, has a great emotional appeal to people right now who are wanting to become more self-sufficient, and at the same time, they're looking for DIY projects around the house. Let's use a more difficult example. Let's say you're an eyelash company and you do eyelashes on people. Obviously, you can't see those customers face to face right now, but perhaps you can create an incentive that you sell online where customers can purchase a gift card now at a slightly discounted rate that can be used once the stay-at-home orders are lifted. And then in the meantime, that gift card purchase could unlock a series of videos on skincare or makeup tips, or simply advice on surviving life without your eyelash extensions during this time. Our point here is to be creative, and really the ideas are endless. The reality is the way we've traditionally connected with our customers in the past has shifted. So really give some thought to what you might be able to provide under these unique circumstances, and then how you might be able to monetize those provisions to help offset lost revenue from more of the traditional channels of sales. Our final point is, however you decide to move online, whether it be a straight transition of your products or new virtual experiences, or perhaps a combination of both, the key is really to think outside of the box for connecting with your customers in these uncertain times in a way that's authentic and meaningful. That connection is really, really important, keeping that alive.
So once you have your sales plan together, it's time to get down to the nitty-gritty of getting online. And if you don't already have a website, choosing your domain name will be one of your first tactical steps to doing so. There are several ways that you can obtain a domain site. Probably the easiest one is to secure a domain name through one of the template-based website builders we'll be talking about in a moment. These are sites like Shopify, Squarespace, BigCommerce, or Wix. If you plan to program your site yourself or simply don't want your domain tied to one of these website companies, you can always go through GoDaddy to search for and secure your domain. We always recommend using a reputable domain registrar like GoDaddy versus a small scale business, which does have a higher chance of going out of business, which would obviously place your domain at a risk. It's really important to choose a provider that does have that solid market experience and staying power. It's also key to register your domain name for the longest amount of time possible. We recommend going up to 10 years if you can get it. This helps avoid all kinds of trouble from a missed domain renewal standpoint. You'll also want to always turn on your auto renew for your domain, and please don't ignore the notices that they send to you. And one final thought on that domain security is to include a backup method of payment in addition to your primary source of payment, just in case something happens to that primary source of payment. Maybe it's an expiration on a credit card. That way, if you don't remember to update it in the system, you'll always ensure that your customers can find your website without one of those dreaded error messages we've all seen before.
And once you've secured your domain, it's time to get to the fun of getting your online store up and running. There are 3 potential ways that you could go about this. You can program your own website, you can use a templated website, or you can use an online marketplace. And truly, nothing can ever replace your website. It is an extremely valuable piece of online real estate for your business, and it really signals to your prospects and customers that you're serious. And of course, a professional looking website makes you look more credible than one that isn't quite as professional looking. And I'm sure we all can think of a business that is only using Facebook, a Facebook page, for example, to promote their business, and we can assure you that they're potentially missing out on some customers by not having a more formal website in their arsenal. And your website is the place where you can market and sell your products, build relationships, generate leads, pass on valuable free content, test ideas, and a whole host of other business activities. Your website actively puts your message out into the world so that potential customers can find you too. And it really is the focal point of your business. And we can't stress enough the importance of having a website. And furthermore, specific to today's conversation, having an e-commerce component to make direct sales. And as I mentioned, we're going to talk about a few different ways that you can bring your website to life. The first is to program your own site. This takes coding and research skills because you'll want to make sure that your initial investment of time and money, because certainly programming it yourself will take both. You want to make sure that it'll pay off in the long run. And building your own site can afford you a lot of flexibility, and you won't have to deal with the various transaction and monthly fees that templated website builders charge. However, on the flip side, if you're not an absolute pro at this, we'll go ahead and say that this is probably not the best option for you. However, if you feel like you're comfortable coding and have experience building websites, then we say go for it. If you're building your own site, you'll still need to choose a domain name, choose a hosting service, set up an SSL certificate, install an e-commerce software platform, sign up for a payment processor, payment gateway, and merchant account. And you also have to have some design skills to make sure your site is clean and appealing to your customer base. If this sounds overwhelming, that's because it is. For a beginner, it can be a true source of frustration, complication, and potentially a needless expense.
But have no fear, there's an alternative to programming your site from scratch, and that's to use one of the many hosted e-commerce sites available from companies that are on the market today. They may be ones you have heard of before: WordPress, Wix, Shopify, BigCommerce, Squarespace. We've mentioned these already. There are others, but those are sort of the big names that are out there right now. And what we really like about this option is that you're able to select from a truly best-in-class set of website designs that are pre-coded and ready to customize to fit your customer's brand and professional needs. And in fact, we are a company that does a lot of graphic design. We have an art director on staff, and we still use one of these templated websites because they just make it so easy to get your website up and running and to look really polished. Most of these templates use what we call a WYSIWYG format, which is what you see is what you get. I'm sure everybody knows what that stands for. That's where you're able to make changes right on the page and see those edits in real time. So you're not building code. Most of these companies also provide flexibility and are easy to customize, and they also have integrated e-commerce platforms that allow you to get your online store up and running really fast, sort of an all-in-one solution. We also really love that the templates they offer come pre-coded for mobile responsiveness, which means your website will automatically adjust to a mobile-friendly version when someone's looking at it on their phone versus their desktop computer. And this is an absolute critical feature. I can't stress this enough. When you consider 79% of smartphone users have made a purchase online using their mobile device in the last 6 months, and nearly 40% of all e-commerce purchases during the holiday season were made on a smartphone. People are buying from their smartphones. So simply put, you can't ignore your website's mobile experience, including the purchasing experience. And these templated website builders really make it easy, as we've said, to provide a clean, easy to use experience for you and your customer. Again, the companies we like are WordPress, Shopify, Squarespace, Wix, and BigCommerce.
Another way to get selling online quickly is through an online marketplace. An online marketplace is a website or app that facilitates shopping from many different sources. The operator of the marketplace doesn't necessarily own any inventory. Their business is simply to present other people's inventory to a user and then to facilitate that transaction. Of course, like everything, there's many different types of these online marketplaces. Some specialize in just one niche, while others sell everything to everybody. But today we're going to touch on 3 marketplace sites. Most of these you've heard of, and it's Amazon, eBay, and Etsy. So using the already established online marketplaces is the simplest and cheapest, at least in the beginning, solution for anyone that's looking to sell their products online. A larger audience, simple setup, and relatively low investment are some of the main reasons why people choose these marketplaces. Another important reason is that by selling on these online marketplaces, you can rely on these customers' policies and their customer service. So first, let's start with the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Amazon. After a month of limiting shipments unrelated to wellness, cleaning, and non-perishable home essentials, Amazon, as of April 13th, is now allowing third-party sellers to resume delivery of other products. This represents 58% of Amazon's overall sales, so it's welcome news to third-party retailers out there who are relying on Amazon to sell their products. So a few stats on Amazon. There's 310 active users and 90 million Prime members on Amazon today. In terms of seller fees, they charge between 6 to 20% of an item's overall value. It's about 15% on average. In terms of member fees, if you want to sell products using the professional account, you need to pay $39.99 a month. If you're selling just as an individual, it will cost you 99 cents per item, and there are no additional monthly fees. And then in terms of monthly page views, you're looking at 2.6 billion monthly page views on Amazon. And we've included a link here that Leslie's going to send to you in the chat box right now, just so you have that to go back to on each of these online marketplaces. Next up, let's talk about eBay. Since its creation in 1995, eBay has come a long way from selling collectible Pez dispensers to becoming one of the most popular online marketplaces in the early 2000s, and they're still known as one of the best platforms out there to sell your products over the internet. Again, those stats on eBay, 175 million active users today. Seller fees, when you're looking at selling an item through auction or fixed price sale, eBay takes a final value fee, which is 10 to 12% on average. There are no membership fees. And then we have 1.2 billion monthly page views on eBay. And last but certainly not least, we'll talk about Etsy. Etsy is one of the most popular global online marketplaces for unique, handcrafted, artsy, or vintage products. Etsy helps creative people, artists, and craftsmen sell their products online by making it easy and relatively cheap to do so. Some of the top selling product categories on Etsy include jewelry, clothing, art, photography, toys and games, home and living, and more. For stats for Etsy, 1.9 million active sellers in 2017 on Etsy, 33.4 million active buyers on Etsy in 2017. And your seller fees, you're looking at 20-cent listing fee and 5% of the item's overall value, plus any amount you have for shipping or gift wrapping. There are no membership fees. However, if you're looking for an Etsy Plus account, which does have some advanced features, you'd be looking at $10 a month.
So why do we love marketplaces? And there are 3 particularly attractive advantages for using a marketplace over your own website to sell online. The first is very fast launch times. If you're new to selling online, marketplaces can be a great way to generate revenue and build your brand as you work to drive traffic to an e-commerce website. Once approved as a third-party seller on marketplaces, you simply upload your product feed and start selling. The second advantage is established programs. All of the biggest and most established marketplaces have programs that are in place to help you easily navigate the waters of marketing, selling, and fulfillment. For example, sellers on eBay, Amazon, and Google have access to Amazon advertising, eBay Promotions Manager, and Google Shopping Actions. And each of these digital marketing programs are packed with tools to help you get products in front of all of your customers at just the right time. And similar options are available to help sellers meet consumer expectations for fast, free deliveries. With programs such as Fulfillment by Amazon and eBay Global Shipping, for instance, you can opt to have the marketplace warehouse pick, pack, and shop your inventory on your behalf. And finally, these marketplaces have enormous built-in audiences of consumers who regularly shop on these sites. Between Amazon, eBay, and Walmart alone, we're talking about nearly 500 million active monthly visitors. And many of those consumers actually start on the marketplace when they want to purchase products. They don't bother with Google or a retail site. They head straight to the marketplace. And in fact, one statistic we found noted that 56% of all product searches now begin and often end on Amazon.
All right, so we've talked about building your own site, selling through marketplaces, and now we're going to touch on social media and social selling. When it comes to reaching people, we all know that social networks are the way to go. It's no secret. Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, they're all amazing ways to find people and also to be found. This type of presence comes for free, but it thrives on engagement with your audience, potential and existing customers. And if you advertise wisely, which we will talk about in a moment, it can be amazingly cheap and effective funnel to get your online store going. You want to make it as convenient as possible for consumers to purchase your products. And how do you do that? Well, you position yourself where they are most of the time, browsing and conversing on social media platforms. In fact, the average American spends around 2 hours per day on social media. And just think how many more minutes they might spend if they could browse your products on Facebook without ever leaving the app. So some data for you. As you can tell, we're a bit of data geeks here. 74% of consumers say they rely on social media for information to help them in future purchases. That's a huge number. In addition to that, 43% of consumers are more likely to purchase a product after learning about it on social media. With these kinds of statistics, obviously you can't afford not to be on social media or not to advertise on social. And you especially can't afford to lose out on the opportunity of selling through social media. Recent studies have found that businesses who practice social selling generally see a $5 return for every $1 invested. But as you may have guessed, each social media platform is just a little bit nuanced. So we're going to touch on tips for selling on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest.
Let's start with Facebook. Probably comes as no surprise to you that Facebook is easily our top choice platform for social selling. There's so many pluses here, and it's very scalable to any budget, any need. The one feature offered by Facebook that other social media platforms don't have is the product catalog. With use of the product catalog, you can link your inventory in your e-commerce store to your Facebook business profile and begin selling those same products directly on Facebook. Your online store and your Facebook page, they talk to each other as purchases are made, so your inventory is always up to date and you have more revenue in your pocket. Very important. And you can also link the items in your product catalog directly to your Facebook ads, so you reach more customers in a highly targeted way, making them more likely to make a purchase. You can also use your catalog when remarketing to customers using Facebook's dynamic ads. So an example of this is if they had already visited your website, they looked at an item in your store, but they abandoned it, you can use the product catalog to show that item to them again in an ad form. That really does give them an opportunity. It gives you an opportunity to remind them of what they're missing out on and that product they were kicking the tires on but hadn't pulled the trigger. So that's how social selling works, really important. And to know that Facebook has a lot of features that make it a compatible platform for virtually any business and any industry. But the following industries have really seen the greatest success with selling on social media through Facebook. They're clothing, consumer packaged goods, gift products, home furnishings, beauty products, and fitness companies.
And next up is Instagram. Instagram was the first 100% visual and mobile platform. It now has over a billion users, and 80% of them actually use the app to make purchases or to look at products that they plan to purchase in the near future. And so how does Instagram facilitate those purchases? They have a fairly new feature called shoppable posts that Instagram introduced in late 2016 when they did some initial testing, and it officially launched globally in 2018. So using that, when you're selling on Instagram, you can also connect to your product catalog like you can on Facebook, since those platforms are linked together, but the user experience for the customer is different. You'll know when you see a shoppable post on Instagram because it has a small little shopping bag icon on the post. And when a user taps on one of those posts, he or she will see the name of the item and the price. If they go ahead and tap it again, they'll be able to see more information about the product, and then they can actually go ahead and make a purchase on that product directly from your post in the Instagram app. The best industries for Instagram are a lot like what we just talked about for Facebook because there is so much overlap there. However, the industries that really have the most success on Instagram are what we are known as the quote unquote Instagram worthy products that have a real visual interest to them. Retail apparel companies, for example, definitely take the cake when it comes to success with selling online with Instagram. And that really just comes back to the fact that Instagram is such a visually based platform. The image of your product is really what people see, is what people see first, then they'll see the copy. So the quality of your images needs to be top notch. And since you're trying to sell these products through a digital screen, you really have to think about how your product photos can interact with your customers. And not to belabor this point, but high resolution imagery that shows off your product is really the best way to accomplish that. And of course, it doesn't hurt to have those photos encourage your customers to think that they need said product. And lifestyle photography is really the best way to do that. For example, having an image of somebody actually using or wearing a product will generate many more sales than just a standalone product of just a plain image on a background. So you have to show the user how much better their life can be after the purchase, after they make the purchase, because online they won't have the benefit of being able to sample, taste, or try on anything before making that jump to purchase.
All right, and third is Pinterest, and I was actually on Pinterest this morning shopping for a solution to store my toddler's toys that seem to be taking over our house, and I did find a solution that I ended up purchasing. through this, so I can preach on Pinterest. But if you're active on this platform like I am, then you know that it has its own social media lingo, and it also has its own way of social selling. So previously, when users, or pinners as we're called, saw items on Pinterest that they wanted to purchase, you'd have to sort of go on a scavenger hunt to find the product, sometimes with no luck, which was really frustrating. But of course, Pinterest figured out a way to solve this problem, and businesses cheered. So enter buyable pins. If a pinner sees a pin with a price in blue, that means the product shown in the pin can be purchased. That's the buyable pin. Your business can take advantage of buyable pins simply by connecting Pinterest to your e-commerce platform. And those are the platforms we were talking about earlier, some of the web building platforms that have the e-commerce portion built into them. Pinterest links to some of these well-known platforms like Shopify and BigCommerce. And every time you add a new product, you can just check the Pinterest box when making the product visible online, and it automatically becomes a buyable pin. So no additional work is needed on your part. It's really quite cool and very seamless. So if you have buyable pins, then pinners can also go directly to your profile to find and shop other pins that are available for purchase. It's also important, if you want to get into the Pinterest game, that you run a business whose products are searched by pinners. Any business that falls into the category of approved industries can sell on Pinterest, but if you fall into any of the categories that we're about to show you on the screen, you'll most likely see the biggest success on Pinterest, and that's home decor and renovation, garden and landscaping, clothing, makeup, arts and crafts, travel, food and drink, and health and self-improvement. We mentioned at the onset of this workshop, and you've probably discovered what we meant by this, in that we're really just touching the surface on a lot of these topics. There's a ton to cover for online selling. And so we are providing these social media resources to you that dive deeper into getting your online sales going on these platforms. So again, Leslie will share this in the chat box for you. You can click through them and do a little more investigation on getting up and running through these links here on the screen.
Another really important component of selling online is getting paid. This is highly encouraged. We like getting paid at JPW, and we'd assume that you do as well. So let's talk a little bit about step 4, which is setting up your payment gateway. Online payment gateways are the e-commerce services that process payment information for websites. Online payment gateways, they offer 2 main benefits to e-commerce businesses. First, they make the checkout process fast and easy. Second, they provide encryption to keep your customers' information secure. So again, it's really important to have that balance, because you really do want to make it easy for your customers to make those purchases, but make sure you're giving them the confidence that you're keeping their data and information private, and those privacy concerns are really big in this day and age. So in that competitive online marketplace, having one way to accept payments is required, but having a few could really put you at an advantage based on your customers. E-commerce businesses have a number of online payment methods to consider, each promising to provide an intuitive and secure checkout experience. The top payment gateways include PayPal, which is one of the biggest and most familiar of all online payment options. They have over 254 million users and more than 17 million businesses that are using this gateway. They also boast an 82% conversion rate when compared to other payment options, arguably making them the leader in payment gateways. Right on their tail, however, is Amazon Pay. Amazon is undisputably one of the most popular sites across the whole web, and one that almost all your customers will have accounts with already. Adding Amazon Pay to your store can make it easier for Amazon customers to shop with you without having to key in their payment data into your checkout manually. And of course, if anyone can compete with PayPal and Amazon for market share, it's Google. The company now offers their own online payment method, Google Pay. Google says hundreds of millions of their users already have their card information saved to their Google accounts, which means providing a Google Pay option adds additional convenience for a significant number of people. And for those who use Apple devices, and that's more than 64% of people in the US, Apple Pay works as a mobile wallet when they're out and about and a one-click payment option on websites that accept it. For mobile users, customers can even check out with Apple Pay by using their touch identification. It doesn't get much easier than that. And there are a few others that are out there that are worth investigating, which include Stripe, Square, Visa Checkout, MasterPress, and 2Checkout. Many of the e-commerce website template builders that we mentioned earlier do offer integration for one or more of these payment platforms into their service, which makes it really easy to get selling online.
So moving on to step 5, which is deciding on your shipping methods. And while this might seem like an afterthought, shipping really has become a massively important issue with e-commerce. And we have a couple stats to prove that point. 38% of customers say that they'll never shop with a retailer again after experiencing a negative delivery event. 60% of customers have chosen a competitor with more convenient delivery options, while 74% of shoppers rate free shipping as important when they're checking out, and 45% of customers have actually abandoned a shopping cart because of unsatisfactory delivery options. So what does this all mean? We need to get shipping right. Again, there are a few options for how you can complete the step of the e-commerce process. You can do it yourself, or you can use fulfillment houses. Doing it yourself, similar to programming your own website, takes a little more time and some hands-on attention, but it also gives you greater control over the unboxing process with your customers. As you may know, unboxing is its own thing, and some retailers are really doing it well. When you do it yourself, you need to consider first your shipping strategy. For example, are you going to pass your shipping expenses onto your customer, or are you going to absorb them and offer free or possibly flat rate shipping options? Secondly, you need to think about your shipping rates and methods. All of the major carriers have shipping calculators online, so you can do some research to determine who is the best option for your business. And thirdly, think about packaging and marketing. And that's because the unboxing process really does reflect your brand. So you need to consider how you can use packaging to carry that brand experience through the delivery process. And then lastly, we have insurance, tracking, and labeling. But all of this, of course, does add time and cost to the experience. Alternatively, if you prefer to outsource shipping, you can partner with a variety of shipping fulfillment vendors. Now, of course, they won't be as attentive as you would be to the unboxing experience, but there is some value in the cost savings and streamlining that they can offer to make it worth your business, make it worth it for your business. When you choose to work with a fulfillment warehouse, you will store your inventory at one of their warehouses. And depending on the level of integration with your shopping cart, when an order comes in, your fulfillment partner will automatically be forwarded the order to pick, pack, and ship the purchase order on your behalf. Cheaper shipping rates and shorter shipping times are two of the big advantages of using fulfillment warehouses, but the branding experience, like I mentioned, is usually a little minimized, and you end up having to pay additional costs for what they call pick and pack fees. Shopify, as one example, offers an insight shipping module that we really like. With their service, you keep your inventory at your home or at your business. You can print your own labels and package your own merchandise, but it allows you to schedule pickups with UPS and DHL from the administration panel. And other shipping providers include ShipRocket, ShipBop, or ShipStation.
I'm actually putting those 3 resources in the chat box right now, just so you can have them, since we didn't have them on the slide. So for those, ShipRocket, ShipBob, and ShipStation, just so you have those names at your fingertips. All right. Well, we have made it to step 6, which is marketing to your online audience. In other words, we can't forget to spread the word once we begin selling online. You can send an email. You can do a push on social media or add a call to action button on your website. But whatever you choose to do, make sure your customers know that they can buy from you online now. As you can probably tell from the brief time that we've been together, getting online is a lot of work, and having a seamless platform does take some time, effort, and energy. So you want to get the word out once you're ready to go. So we've put, excuse me, some ideas together for you to accomplish this. The first idea is creating a blog and or posting high quality content on the regular. This is definitely a very long-term strategy, and we can tell you it won't pay off overnight, but every entrepreneur really needs to understand the importance of embracing this online marketing method. It gets people interested in you, and it doesn't, it's not real salesy. If you are providing interesting and relevant content to them, you sort of become a subject matter expert that they trust, and that's a great step into the sales funnel. Another option is to use Facebook ads, and while this is not a free option, it is a great opportunity for reaching the right demographics for your business. So if you haven't used Facebook ads before, you're really missing out, because it's almost kind of creepy how detailed you can get in terms of reaching your audience. You can use metrics like personal interests, geographic locations, marital status, age, and many others to potentially locate customers and really serve them up strategically targeted ads on your behalf. So that's really something to look into, and it's also very, very affordable. Another idea is to leverage Instagram influencers, and truly we could do a whole hour just on Instagram influencers and how they work and how you activate them. But from a high level perspective, Instagram influencers are people who have huge followings online. So maybe they have hundreds of thousands, some even have millions of followers, and you can partner with them to help break through some of the algorithms that are out there that are really working against us when we just post something organically onto Instagram. These folks can post on your behalf and get your message out to a wider range of audiences. Another powerful tool is creating useful video tutorials on YouTube. We will say YouTube can be a little bit slow when you start building your audience, but if you focus on creating useful video tutorials, eventually you'll reach a vast amount of people. And again, you really have to focus on adding that value without much concern for generating profit. And we know that sounds sort of counterintuitive, but that's really how this social experience works on YouTube. It's really important, though, that you still drop your link inside the description of your video so people can link back to the relevant content on your site, because obviously that's the ultimate goal, is to get them activated and in the sales funnel. And finally, connecting with your customers through email marketing is a great way, and something we feel every business owner should be engaged in at one level or another. And if you're serious about collecting emails, consider taking the time to create something for free and offer it on your website, maybe a free ebook or a free report. And that will help people find you in your industry and then see you again as a leader in that space. And then they'll be more willing to give you their email address, which you're able to use to connect with them on a regular basis. That's how you develop the relationship with them. Once you have an email, you can start doing like a drip-fed campaign through Constant Contact or MailChimp to really just get the word out. Again, sounds a little counterintuitive, but we say, don't try to sell at every corner and turn with your email marketing. It's best to connect first and then focus on selling afterwards. So we have covered a lot in our time together. We're coming up on 50 minutes here of a ton of content, but we'd like to open it up for questions. If you are familiar with Zoom, you can go to the chat box and just type in some questions there for us. We'd be happy to answer any that you have. If you're not that familiar, you should have, if you go to the top of your screen, a navigation bar. And under the category of more, you can click on that and then click chat, and it should bring up it should bring up the chat box for you. So we do have a question about replay on our site. This will be available. We have recorded this, and we will work to get it out through the chambers in the main streets in the city so that you can reference this as we move forward in this time. Somebody asked a question about SEO and competing with big name brands. Great question. That is certainly a challenge. SEO, for those that aren't familiar, is really just the way you write your content on your page and the words that you embed in your website that allow your site to be found. I will say from my personal experience that some of these big template sites that we talked about earlier, like Wix, Shopify, Squarespace, etc., they do a really good job of making SEO very, very easy. So you're able to go in on each page and type in words that you think people would use to search for your product or category. And that is what helps with the SEO, with the SEO engine. And I don't know if anybody, Leslie or Suzanne, if you have anything to add to that.
This is Leslie. I might add just a few things there. With SEO, it really comes down to kind of two factors, one of which is, of course, the content that you have on your website. And as Jenny mentioned, there's some really great tools out there that you can use to research the keywords that people are using. And once you have that sort of information, you can integrate the commonly searched keywords into the content of your page. And also, the strategy we talked about having a blog really can help your SEO efforts too, because that's adding new, fresh content to your website, which gives search engine indexing bots another reason to come back to your site more often, because if every time they come back there's new pages, new content, then they will kind of get used to coming back to your site, which will of course benefit you in the long term. And then on the other side of that, there's off-page optimization, so things that don't really fall under your purview on your site. And the biggest point there is linking. Any link from another site that references you, especially if they're using a hyperlinked keyword that is relevant to your business, is essentially a signal to Google or any search engine about a vote of confidence for your site. And so in the background, the algorithm machine that's kind of working to figure out what sites to rank in what order after somebody puts in a certain keyword. There's so many factors that go into it, but really content, and then encouraging really quality links back to your site will kind of help boost you in that rank order. And of course, be strategic about what you're shopping for, what you're targeting. Just to use one example, if somebody is searching for the term golf, that could mean somebody is looking for golf shoes, making a reservation somewhere, a tea time. But if you search for golf, a golf certain product, then that is like what we call a longer tail keyword, and that's a bit more specific. And so I would recommend putting more weight behind phrases that are really relevant to your business and not going after those really high level terms that could relate to all sorts of different things.
Great, thanks, Les. Someone asked if we could recommend a good place to find Shopify experts. What I have found on these sites are there, once you kind of get into the backside, the admin side, there are resources that you can search within the site, and they can put you in touch with folks that are very familiar with the platform. And we've actually used a number of those folks for our website as well, and it's worked really, really easily. Another question about what I should expect to pay an influencer. It really depends. That question ranges tremendously. I mean, obviously, if it's a local influencer that is just within the community, but is well known. It could just be a swap of products. But if you're, going to go after Kylie Jenner, obviously you're talking, hundreds of thousands of dollars for simply just one post. And I may even be off on that number, but it can get really crazy with some of those high-end influencers. But a lot of times if we're talking about community-based businesses, folks that are local in the community can really carry a lot of weight. And as I said, a lot of times it's just a product swap with them, that they try it out, they like it, and then they share it. So it's fun to explore. If you know of somebody that you want to send a care package to and ask them to share their experience online, that's one way to go about it. So that can be a very affordable route.
And this is Suzanne. I'll just add to that too, that I think, like Jenny was saying before about that relationship with the influencers, it tends to come out of a relationship already with your brand and your business. And so a lot of times it is very organic, where they are already using their product, or they already believe in what you're offering to the community and the greater good. And that does just happen, where they do start to help spread the news about what you're doing and what you're offering, and to kind of their circles of influence, as Jenny mentioned before. So, but it does run quite a spectrum, depending on how involved it is and what that exchange of payment, goods and services would be. But at a local level, I know for me, being an Encinitas resident myself, I see a lot of that happening with our local heroes and well-known community personalities. So I think that that's a real opportunity, especially looking at the local level of who's already in good relationship with you and your brand and your business.
There's a question about the Facebook link that we provided, asking if that would help walk you through to create a shopping page. It does give you a very detailed outline of how to get selling on Facebook. So I think that resource will be what you're looking for there. I'm just reading through if there's any other questions I can answer. I think we've covered all the questions. Are there any others? If there's anyone that I missed, I'm going to go back to the top here.
It looks like there was a question on thoughts about Google Maps, and I'm wondering if a little more detail on that question, maybe, if we could get that. And then the second one too, on how using financial services and insurance would apply. And I'm wondering if how could financial service and insurance businesses apply this information? I think that's the question, but want to clarify.
And then a question on which website makers do we recommend for ease and shipping. I can tell you we've worked with Wix. That's the platform we use for our website. We've worked with Shopify and Squarespace, and they all function really, really well. WordPress as well. WordPress needs a little more hands-on attention, I feel, than the other three that I mentioned. So I think you would be in good shape with Shopify or Squarespace if you're trying to get an online store launched up and running fairly quickly. And then I think, Michael, I see that you've weighed in on the financial services. Maybe I think the question is how to sell financial services or insurance online. That may be something we want to try and talk about offline. It's obviously a difficult conversation, or hard to kind of imagine how that might work. What I would off the cuff suggest is looking at ways to build content to create an audience and position yourself as a leader in the space, so that when those needs come up, they think of you, right? Obviously, somebody's probably not going to be searching Pinterest for insurance needs, but if you have a robust email contact list and can send out content to them on a regular basis that keeps them informed about issues that are relevant and timely, that's a great way to kind of use that social connection to keep information front and center for potential customers.
Yeah, I think that's good advice too, just in terms of knowing where your customers are. I do know that there is a little sensitivity in those industries too of how you market, and just having some colleagues that I've worked with in those industries, you do have some limitations, but I think yeah, just finding out where those customers are and having that relationship with them. And there may be more of a tie-in to like LinkedIn as a more of a social media tool than Facebook or Instagram. But again, just figuring out where those audiences are you want to reach, and approaching them there with information that's helpful. I know I've received some good advice from folks on LinkedIn along those lines that are kind of proactively leaning into the questions everyone's asking about what this means for the future of my portfolio and so on and so forth. I think, yeah, kind of building into the things people are already talking about, the questions they already have, is a great idea for content.
Angela, I just read your question too. You have a challenging one on a local printing business. And we can relate because we use a lot of printing services as well, and there are so many online options. I can tell you our company relies really heavily on a local business because of the personal connection that we have with them. And so I would really stress, kind of using methods to do that during this time, reaching your customers with a buy local message could really resonate with them, kind of calling out some of the specifications of what they get by using somebody in town versus one of these big online printing sources, and not being shy about that difference and supporting a local business. I know it's very hard in the printing business because of the proofing process and so forth. But I think a bit of education might help too, just how you are pivoting during COVID and not being able to perhaps sit together and go over a hard copy proof, but what you've done to now provide those electronically to still service your customers' needs, that might be something that resonates with them too. And really just, trying to get creative, as we said earlier, that's the key. And sometimes it just takes sitting down and doing some crazy brainstorming to see what that might look like to get an idea or two off the ground. I also saw, it looks like Talia has a couple resources if anybody needs help building a site or content messaging. There's a couple links that she's provided, so that's awesome to see some resources there. And then for building on Amazon and eBay, when you cannot link to your website, you can actually do that natively within those two spaces. So you don't have to have your own website for that. So I'd encourage you to check out the links that we provided to learn about getting your products up and running on those sites. But that's definitely possible. And then it looks like Kristen also has some solutions for us there in the chat box. Thanks, Kristen. That's awesome. That's what this is all about, supporting each other and getting our businesses back up and running. So if there's any other resources that anybody has, feel free to add those in the chat box. I'm not seeing any other questions. Susanne and Leslie, do you want to check me on that?
I did see a question about what social would be best for females 50 plus demographic.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I do think that definitely Facebook versus Instagram, which we covered today, you're looking at like 68% 50 to 64-year-olds on Facebook. And that's compared to, I think it's around 35 to 40 on Instagram. So I do think between those options that definitely Facebook is going to be your best bet.
Hey, Kristen, if you're still on the line, if you want to drop a link in there too, to the chat box, that'd be awesome. We'll link to your website.
There was also a question about Google Maps in more detail of again, someone wants pizza for dinner, they go to Google Maps and then they find a particular pizza place, go to their website to see what they're doing with delivery or curbside. That is a really good question. And I think, again, not sure whether that's the interface again, I think it's building into your interface of your website an option to be able to do that, and just knowing enough to be dangerous about that. I do think that's a situation where it's a communication from the business on their status, whether they're closed, whether they're open, what they're offering to Google Maps, just based on doing that for a few clients where we're having a closure of a road or a closure of a building or facility that's going to impact the public. I do think that's in a situation where the business would get in touch with Google and let them know about that closure or what they're doing. But we can also post some more information on that after this, and just make sure that that is accurate.
I'm going to just put up the contact screen for everybody who's still on the line. Websites for the City of Encinitas, the Encinitas Chamber, and the Main Street Associations, as well as our website address. It has been a true pleasure to be with you all today. I think we've answered all the questions that are in there. I see Kristen has dropped a couple links to websites for resources. That's awesome. We will be sharing the recorded version of this with the Chamber and the Main Street Associations in the city, so that if you want to go back and listen to anything, you're certainly welcome to do so. We're happy to answer any questions. You can find our email addresses on our website. If you think of something that comes to mind later, we're happy at no charge just to give you our best thinking around this topic. We are definitely, I know it's sort of a platitude to say it, but we are all in this together. All of our businesses are being affected in one way or another. And I know our team, and I know all of you are likely very, very ready to get back to work and back to life as we know it. So thank you everyone for being on today. Just doing this webinar and preparing it really just made us feel good and excited about what the future holds. If anybody can do it, our local businesses can do it. So we stand by you. Thank you for being on the call today. Again, if you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out via our website, and we wish you all the very best. Thanks for joining us today.